It's pretty gross when you find a bug frozen inside an ice cube. And it's always nasty when you discover a 6-year-old pork chop at the back of your freezer, encased in ice like a woolly mammoth corpse. But these minor inconveniences are nothing compared to the abject horror you'd experience if you'd unearth the objects we're about to see in our list of 5 terrifying and creepy things discovered frozen in ice. The Frozen Feast. This entry is a little different from the rest because it describes an icy discovery that people knew they had to make, but really didn't want to. In 1972, the Argentinian rugby team Old Christians Club were on a flight to Chile when it crashed into the frozen peaks of the Andes mountain range. 12 passengers died in the crash or shortly thereafter, and a further 6 had perished within the next week. But the real horror was still yet to come, as the remaining 27 had to find a way to survive in these freezing mountain conditions for months. Search parties from 3 countries attempted to find the stricken craft, but the rescue mission was canceled after 8 days. Something the survivors found out for themselves by radio. At this point, I think I'd roll up into a ball and start crying. But these guys were made of sterner stuff. They realized they'd have to save themselves. And with next to no food on board this short-haul flight, that meant they would have to consume the flesh of their dead teammates. For 2 long, harrowing months, they survived in these horrific circumstances, at which point 3 players decided for a daring, last-chance, risk-all hike out of the Andes to find help. On the 23rd of December, the remaining survivors were airlifted to safety. In total, 16 of the passengers survived, sadly, living long enough to see the corny Hollywood version of their story come out in 1993. But the reason this tale makes our list is because on the 18th of January, 1973, 26 days after the survivors were rescued, a group of men led by a priest traveled to the crash site to bury the dead. And when they did so, they discovered the clear signs of the cannibalism which had occurred here, with the Andes Mountains revealing bits of horror that had taken place over the past 2 months. The priest and his men said nothing, and instead merely gathered what remains were left, buried them in a simple grave, and departed. A few members of the same group later went back to torch the whole place with gasoline just to make sure. But because everyone loves a grisly story, the surviving men were persuaded to admit what everyone knew at a press conference just a few days later, that these poor souls had to eat their friends and teammates to survive. And burning or burying their bones wasn't going to change the memory of that experience for anyone.